o'clock, so I will call the meeting to order. The chair notes there's a quorum present, and let's do the flag salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, 2.0 is additions or revisions to the agenda. I have two adds for the consent agenda. I'd like to add consider 4.4, which is consider approval of amended vehicle usage agreement with Coos County. That is just like saying a date that Coos County caught when they were reviewing it. We did this last time, and so nothing else has changed from the last time. And 4.5 is consider approval of Weed Department grant submittal request for the BLM grant. Any objections to that, first of all?
No.
And then any other additions or revisions to the agenda?
No.
Okay. We'll move on to 3.0, which is correspondence and public comments. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meeting. Speakers are asked to raise your hand to be recognized by the chair. Give your name and address and limit comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any public comments? Okay. We don't have any correspondence either, so we'll move on to the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of consider approval of January 22nd regular meeting minutes, consider approval of January bills pending review, consider approval of amendment to the transportation blanket purchase agreement with Greater Oregon Behavioral Health Incorporated, which is GOBHI, consider approval of amended vehicle usage agreement with Coos County, and consider approval of Weed Department grant submittal request. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to unfinished business. 5.1, Frontier Telenet update. We had our sort of quarterly meeting last week after Tri-County Court. Sherry was there as well, so I'll just kind of give you the highlights. Let's see here. We got an invoice from Jim Deason, which we decided to pay.
How's the deadline?
He was actually on time for that deadline. It was for November. But it was kind of sprung on Joe and I, Judge DeVolskas and I at the last minute. And so we asked that we be given a little bit more time to review those than have to read them during the actual meeting. The other takeaway is we decided rather than hiring one individual or firm to manage the day-to-day operations, that we would sort of piecemeal out the different functions that we need help with. So we've got 2 towers, Cottonwood Tower and Roosevelt Tower, one that needs to be constructed and the other one that needs some repairs. And so we left that meeting basically agreeing we would put out RFPs for a project manager, similar to what Jeff Schott does for us in Gilliam County, to manage those so that we don't have to do that as a board. And then we also don't have to hire a full-time manager to take care of that. We can just have them either just for the project. And we're also looking at doing that for the regulatory filings, which right now Jim Deason is doing. And so we'd like to move that. And he has asked that those be moved away from him and given to, there's some firms out there that specialize in that kind of thing. And so we'll probably find one of those to help manage that piece. Other than that, we appointed the Gilliam County's Budget Committee members to the committee, and obviously I'm one of them. The other one that we submitted was Catherine Greiners. She served last year and is familiar with Telenet's budgets and budgets generally, and so that was approved. And other than that, I think those were the, did I miss anything?
Yeah, I thought the whole idea to, rather than hiring a full-time manager and putting out that kind of expense, to just hire what you needed when you needed it was a really good solution to that.
I felt happy about that.
That's a good solution.
Any changes to the budget committee, or is it the same thing as last year?
So when we appointed them last year, we set them on staggered terms. So Gilliam counties came off in the first year. Sherman counties were appointed for 2 years, and then Wheeler counties for 3 years. So Sherman's and Wheeler counties will be the same as last year. Any questions related to that?
Things are going good?
Things are going well, yeah. 5.2, the Fiber Council update. We have been, we had one meeting with the Fiber Council since the last time we met, basically to go over the dark fiber release, and had Christy, our telecom attorney, had reviewed it on behalf of Gilliam County to make sure that she was comfortable with it. She had some comments and questions that the fiber committee looked at and sort of, so they're ping-ponging questions and responses back and forth. Christy got those comments and is finalizing that draft. And so once that's finalized, it'll come back to the Fiber Council, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And then we can start signing the new customers, which would be great to get those on. And that's really it. Catherine and I met with a couple of potential customers that are interested. I would say we had 3 meetings, and 2 for sure were interested in leasing fiber. Frontier telling it's a 3rd one that would definitely want to be hooked up for the PSAP in the ESD building, the 911 center. So we'll at least, I think, have a pretty good start to having people actually using the system and paying some of those recurring costs that we incur currently. So things are moving along. That's all I have for those 2. Any questions for that? Okay, let's move on to new business, which is 6.1. Consider approval of resolution number R 2020-07, resolution declaring county vehicle as surplus. So this is for the 2004 Toyota Sequoia, so work crew vehicle that they were using. And so the sheriff's office has asked us to go ahead and surplus it. It's 16 years old, has 185,000 miles on it, and served its useful life for the county. So the sheriff's office has asked us to go ahead and declare it as surplus and give them some flexibility in terms of how they dispose of it, whether it's sealed bids, public auction, or we've been using the online auction too, with a minimum bid of $800. So, any questions about that?
So I move to adopt resolution number R 2020-07, declaring the 2004 Toyota Sequoia as surplus and directing the vehicle be disposed of via sealed bids, public auction, or through an online public auction website. It's not part of that. Do we need to put minimum bid in?
Yeah.
With a
if
minimum
we
bid
can.
of $800.
I'll second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution number R 2020-07, declaring the 2004 Toyota Sequoia as surplus, and directing the vehicle to be disposed of via sealed bids, public auction, or through an online public auction website with a minimum bid of $800. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're going to move into the meat of the meeting. You guys had asked a couple months ago that we start doing staff reports, and so Lisa has been working closely with staff to basically help them create both the briefings that were in your packets, which is kind of a looking back, and then also to help them create their PowerPoint slides. And the point of the point of the reports, what we're sort of hoping for, is for them to kind of highlight things that are going well that they want us to know about, but also talking about what they're hoping to sort of bring forward. So there'll be kind of a mix of that. And so, also because this is a little nerve-wracking to sit in front of our YouTube audience and everybody else, they're doing it sort of as a group, so they'll, they'll be one at a time, but pure support while they're up here. So with that, I'll turn it over to the group. I didn't know, do you want us to go right into Amy, or did you have anything?
Nope, I have a little preamble, so to set the scene. So good morning, Commissioners, Judge. Just for the record, introducing myself, Chief of Staff Lisa Atkin at Gilliam County. So we're happy to bring you the return of staff reports. And so I just want to outline the process here and initiation feedback for future presentations. So the plan is to bring these to you twice a year in 2 groups. So this is the first pilot group, if you like, and then we'll have another group in the March County Court meeting. And so in your packets, you will have seen the item briefing for each department that's represented here today on the panel. Those item briefings were really looking back at 2019 and the accomplishments that each department had achieved in the past year. And so today we're going to do the look forward into 2020 and beyond, and just walk you through what we've got going on. So today, as I said, we have 3 departments represented. So we have Marla, our transportation coordinator for transportation services, and she'll be followed by Amy Nation, juvenile services director, who will be catching us up to speed on what's happening in her department. And then Teresa Aldrich, who is our safety officer of the safety committee, and she'll be bringing up to speed on what we're focusing on for 2020 in that. So if we move on to the next slide, and I will hand over to Marla, who will walk us through the transportation services.
First of all, the briefing, were there any questions on it? Did anyone have any, or?
I
didn't.
Oh, it's all right.
Yes, very informative.
Good deal. So this is going to be the new Ward Street building, which was the old Condon Public Works building. And we're getting about $35,000 put into it. Concrete, new doors, everything will be power, we'll have it'll be ADA accessible. And Jeff Schott is doing all of our consulting from the RFQ, the sketches, and he'll do the project management all the way through completion. So everything will be as it should be.
Do you have a time frame?
I'm shooting for June. I'm hoping for before June 30th, but I think that's probably close because of the concrete being poured. I think the doors might go in a little sooner, and then we could start using the building. We just can't, we've been told we can't use it at all because the garage doors cause some safety concerns. So that's about all I have. Oh, and just for future reference, there may be a chance where we're looking at an Arlington extension on the same plot of land. We're going to need additional bus storage. I'm thinking about a pole building, but just put that in the file. That would be great. Tech upgrades for the vehicle. We are inundated with piles and piles and piles of paperwork, and our drivers all filled them out their own way, and then it's left for us to decipher and make sure everything is copacetic. So we are working on we were granted to be in the ODOT pilot program for technical assessments, and we're supposed to have an answer sometime by the end of February on what we have in the air, what we already have in place, which we have Turbo West doing our communications with our radios and our GPS. And then we have Fleetio that does our maintenance, preventive maintenance, tells us warranties, issues, it tells us recalls. And then we're trying to get pre and post trip inspection forms up because it was a compliance issue. My drivers don't mind doing the front one. They don't like to do the post trip, and that's not in ODOT's best interest. So we're trying to get that all worked out to where it'll be done, maybe shorten the form, or maybe go, and I'd love to go all electronic, and we just don't know what that looks like yet. So the assessment should be done, and we have some funds started. And then, as you know, you granted the grant application that I just submitted. You guys approved that last time. Thank you.
So the idea then would be, Marla, that you had potentially tablets that then your drivers, when they're doing their pre and post, would just put those in, and then they'd show up on your computers, and So they'd all be electronic. is what
Right,
I'm
so I
talking
would have everything, and it'd be that day I'd get it, not when I got down to Arlington to get this trip sheets, and I said, oh, it needs oil? Great, thanks for letting me know. So we can keep up on all that kind of good stuff.
That's pretty exciting. Yeah, that is exciting.
It is, and the bad part is there's so many dispatch software that it's good for dial a ride, which is what we do now. But if we expanded a designated route, they don't speak to each other really well. And the newest edition that we just found out about was Google Docs. It's pretty reasonably priced, and it can be made into what you need it. So that's what we're looking at potentially, but we'll wait for the assessment.
Cool.
The designated route. ODOT feels that our Columbia River corridor needs to be covered so people could travel from Astoria to Ontario on public transit. And at this point, we do not have that. And they have on one of their places that this is like a big black hole is from the Dalles. Thank you. From the Dalles to Hermiston. So our plan was to try a designated route. It'll go out of Condon to the Dalles once a week, probably on a Tuesday. And then out of Arlington, we're going once to Hermiston, once to the Dalles. And we're not sure on the dates of that. We're going to have to reach out and do some public input, see what they want. And there is a potential that we will have to be looking at a paid driver to cover this because it will be a set thing. That also just can go back in the file, and we might be talking about it later. And this is, it also, my biggest fear about the whole situation is we're going to be running an empty bus. We will ask people to call and see if they want to go with us that day. But the bad part is if we start joining with the other programs, they all have this great little website where you can go right on and you can ride public transit anywhere, which we would be working with them, providing, like if somebody hops on us at Weimar and rides down to Rite Aid, we could do that as a partnership. The bad part is if we don't have somebody on the bus, do I send that? You know, it's right now there's a lot, but we're just building a lot of things. And it's a great learning experience. I'm learning a lot about rules and stuff. Not my strong point. But anyway, I'm excited. It's a whole new game, and with Naya coming on as a full-time dispatcher, it's helped so much. I don't have to answer the phones. It's been a godsend. And I think Sabrina's been able to get more focused on the senior part of her job. I think she started her Shiva training, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
Great.
So are you thinking in the designated route, it seems to me that people would start planning around that, right? So if they know a bus always leaves on Tuesday, then they would put their dentist appointment on Tuesday and they would plan to do their shopping on Tuesday. So that's kind of the hope, is once this is designated, then you have a guaranteed driver too, so that
Right. That's why it's
reliance on volunteers and trying to coordinate that piece for those one-off trips would hopefully diminish
correct.
as well.
Right, there'll still be the non-emergency medical transport. You know, those are still gonna have to happen, but with the volunteer driver numbers dropping, people have to be shown this new experience, and maybe it is public transit, but it all boils down to it. Nobody else in the bigger cities gets to decide where they stop all the time, right on time, right by the door. It's gonna be a hard sell because people are spoiled, and I understand that.
How are you promoting that and getting the information out to the general public and letting them know that this is something
Well,
that
we've been
is gonna
discussing it, just kind of talking about it, but now I was thinking of, since it's through STIF dollars, which are targeted at low-income housing, I was thinking about maybe taking a few people with us on a little route and say, okay, where would you like to stop? And get their input, because it's easy enough for this small community to figure out mostly where they go, and if we can get it on a route where it satisfies most people, that's what I want to do. And I thought maybe we could take them out to lunch, make it more of an outing for them, but they get real input on it. So that was
Sort of like a focus group.
Yeah.
A rolling focus group kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, pun intended.
So that just came up at the ACT meeting the other day when we were talking about it, so I thought that was, it's a good way to start. And then just I started a excursion list in the Times Journal and promote, and if people have ideas where they want to go, have social events, things like that. Not private social events, but things that everybody can ride to. I'm asking for suggestions and I'll run that weekly. We're setting up some kind of an agreement with Times Journal to have a little space full time. And I do have one little thing I'd like to touch on is the, with the new legislature, the Medicare and Medicaid coverages have changed.
You're doing great.
But there's the Medicare and the Medicaid, and they used to always have medical reimbursement included. They've taken that away and put it under the QMB, which is a qualified medical benefit. And I understand why people are taking it because it's supposed to help them with their doctorate costs, and they're supposed to get more bang for their buck, but they've totally dropped transportation out. Which means that might be fine in big cities where it's $1 to go here and $1 to go there on public transit, but for us it's a lot more expensive. And we can't be on a route for that type of thing. They have to be dial-a-ride. So we've had people, 12 to 16 people have lost the benefit here in Gilliam County, that's substantial. And one lady that has used it, she had between 18 and 19,000 miles to medical trips last year. So that, I mean, it's a hardship on her. She can't drive herself because she's getting older and they're getting more vulnerable. But now we're going to take away their transit dollars. So that's kind of my little project, just trying to get a hold of certain people. We've made contact with DHS. There's a gentleman there working with us. And Teddy I also coordinate with her on it. So if you hear anything about that, put your 2 cents in.
Got it. Will do.
Okay. Questions here?
Questions?
I just wanted to tell you thank you, because I don't know if I ever had the chance to tell you thank you for the cheat sheets that you gave me on STEP. I just found this to be and I'm just going to keep them in my bag all the time because this was really, really helpful.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And I am working on one for the funding, so everyone will know what those dollars go to and what I'm spending them on. It's just a big budget, a big project for me, so I'm reviewing grant docs and applications right now, and I should have it hopefully within a month, so you'll have a copy.
And that might be a good point too for the folks who are watching from home to understand that Marla has built this program by being really aggressive about going after state funds. So all of these new things that we're talking about are because she's been really sort of visionary in where transportation can go, and that has freed up state dollars. So all of this is being funded by grants, which is an added benefit, that it's not coming out of the county's general fund. These are dollars she's bringing in to provide a service that clearly people value in the community. So
Thank you for all your hard work.
You're very welcome.
Amy, you're up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I guess I'll start similar to Marla. Did you have questions over the briefing I had?
I did not at this point in time.
Okay. Well, then I will also just.
I do have a question, but I will wait to get that completely answered.
I
Answer it and then.
She doesn't
It
want
won't
to
be a
preempt
question
your
anymore.
presentation.
Oh, make me nervous, sure. All right. So juvenile services, talking a little bit about, it's been kind of a hot topic with whether or not we're going to go into circuit court or not. And just to brief you guys a little bit on how 2019 went, we were transferring all new cases into circuit court. And clearly we picked the best year to do that because I think I got 20 plus new cases in 2019. So it gave me a really good feel for how things were going to go in circuit court, what the differences might be, kind of a feel for all the judges, since I've now sat in front of all 4 of them, and things have gone well. We do still have local control in the fact that I still make all the recommendations and work with the families in delinquency cases. And in our DHS cases, we still have our local caseworkers that are making the recommendations. They're in the courtroom and working with our DHS families. And from what I've seen, we do have one judge staying with each case for consistency. I can only think of one hearing where a different judge appeared and it was a review hearing and it worked out all right, just circumstances turned out that way. But every other hearing that we had last year, the same judge stayed with the same family through the entire case. So that hasn't been a concern that I've seen either.
Well, the judges are scheduling
They-
the continuations themselves, so they're
They are.
making sure they fit in their schedule.
They are. And the one that a different judge had to hear the review was only because the judge appointed to the case had scheduling conflicts and didn't want that family to have to wait longer for a hearing. So it actually was to try to benefit the family, even though, and it was just I don't want to say just a review, but it was a short hearing, a minor hearing, and so the judge felt like instead of pushing this family out to wait longer to get back into court and update on the DHS case, they put it in front of a different judge for that particular hearing. But that, like I said, that's only once, and we had multiple hearings last year, and the same judge stayed with their cases. So, and it is because they're scheduling in the courtroom and making sure that they get it on their calendar. And they've been here in person too. There have been a couple of times where they haven't, only because nobody else is in the courtroom. Either the family isn't coming, or maybe a youth is in Norcor and the attorney is going to Norcor as well, and so I'm the only one here, and so I'll tell the judge there's really no sense in driving out here, no one's in the courtroom but me. So then they'll appear by video. But it's gone well. Any questions? Prevention curriculum. I went to a training, I believe last October, I can't remember exactly, called Girl Circle. I've heard a lot about it even before I took this position, when I was the assistant to the previous director. It's an evidence-based program proven to reduce juvenile crime and recidivism. There's Girl Circle and Boys Council. I have not done the Boys Council training yet. I'm really excited about the Girls Circle. I'm hoping to implement it in Arlington and in Condon. It just talks about things, you get a group of girls and you go through a curriculum with them. They pretty much lead it, and it teaches them things like self-respect and boundaries and bullying and just skills. I think every teenage girl, just the difficulties they go through as teens, and how they can deal with it and empower each other and work together. And it's a great program. So this month, I'm actually going to Primeville, who has a program up and running, and they have 5 to 6 classes a day in the school. And I'm going to go observe them do their Girls Circle, do all 6 groups, and then get a question and answer with them, because I have lots and lots of questions about how they actually got into the school during school time to be able to do the curriculum. And then I'm really hoping to start one here in Gilliam County. So I'm super excited about that. And I guess to keep in the back of your mind, that may be some funding I might need in the future, depending on what it takes to get it up and going. So.
And just to piggyback off that, one of the thoughts that Amy and I have kicked around is because our cases are in the circuit court picks up the costs for attorney fees. And so we have a pretty good size line item in Amy's budget that is for attorney's fees that we've just kept. So I think the idea would be is if we continue to send those cases to circuit court, which is my intention, even if we don't make that a permanent thing, just as a, using my my authority as the judge, that some of that money that we would otherwise spend on attorney fees, we could reprogram and use for prevention instead. But there may be, depending on what Amy comes up with, even greater need beyond what we would save on the attorney fee side. But just wanted to let you know that that's one of the benefits of having them in circuit court, is we have some extra dollars that we could potentially use towards prevention instead.
Yeah, great.
And then just a little update on my juvenile crime prevention grant. It's, we have to redo the grant every 2 years. When I took this job, we were in the middle of a grant cycle, so the dollars, was allocated on what they were for, and what it was being used for at the time was tutoring and counseling in the Condon and the Arlington schools. And then some of the money goes to Teddy's OYCC program for the youth work in the summer. The purpose of the grant is trying to reduce juvenile delinquency, recidivism within our county. And so one of the requirements of the grant is that a risk assessment is done in the beginning of working with the youth and at the end, because they want to see if did this program that we're putting the dollars into reduce the risk this child was. And so when I took over the grant, these weren't always being done, and our Condon school wasn't really comfortable doing them because they're doing it with kids who aren't in the juvenile department, but it's attached to the juvenile department, so there was some nervousness around that. And so I wanted to make sure that we had the grant completely up to fidelity. And so when it came time to redo the grant last year, I met with Mrs. Gear at the Condon School, and they declined to take the grant because of the risk assessment that was required to make the grant done correctly. And so what I ended up doing was taking the dollars that Condon School was getting and giving them to the Arlington School, who is on board with doing the risk assessments. And so the grant is running well. Arlington was very grateful for the dollars. The counselor there is doing the risk assessments for me. I've gotten multiple risk assessments back. I think I've gotten 20 so far already this year. So that's great, so I can show the state that they have what they need for us to get those dollars. And Teddy works really well. She even, in the last grant cycle, she made sure the risk assessments were done, and we partnered this year, and I did some to help out. And so the grant's going well, and it's extra dollars for our school and for Teddy's program to help our kids out and get them the counseling, the tutoring, and some job skills that they need. So it's a really good grant that we have.
Fantastic. Questions for Amy? Sherry, did you get yours answered?
I did not.
Sorry, Sherry.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm just curious, the case load has kind of blown up.
Yes, ma'am, it has.
And do we
why?
have a reason behind it?
I think it's, we ebb and flow, for one. There have been times historically in the past, although clearly not in the last 4 years that I put on this chart, but I know there have been times, and I think some of this is attributed to, as I said in the briefing, several delinquents getting into trouble together, kind of bumped up the caseload.
Group trouble.
Yeah, which happens. Kids, adults, all of us sometimes don't make smart decisions when we're in groups. And then each child is counted as a case. So if you're getting large families in a dependency case, which has been what's happened with some of these, so you're getting 3, 4 kids in a family. Well, each of that is counted as a case, but
it's one family.
It's
but-
one family. So that's attributed a little bit. Also throughout the state, although I don't know if it's really necessarily been a trend for me, it seems like boys are getting into more trouble. Girls are getting into some more trouble, and we've been talking about that at our directors' meetings on what's going on with girls right now and how can we help girls. And Girls Circle is one of the reasons why, like I said, it hasn't been too bad for our county number-wise in females versus males, but I think a lot of it is just groups getting into trouble, larger families needing some services, and just the ebb and flow of how things happen. So I'm hoping we see it level out a little bit this year. So we'll see how it goes, because, you know, the previous 3 years definitely were not that busy. So, and I'm hoping to just programs in place. You know, we're back up to full staff at DHS. We were down a caseworker for a while when Damon left, and that was a slot that needed filled. So there have been changes within DHS too. So I'm hoping with maybe some consistency in staffing, eyes on the family. And I think that's a big thing too, is maybe more people are paying attention and reporting things, which is super important. And when that happens, then more kids end up coming through our system. So.
Thank you.
More questions for Amy?
I just wanted to tell you that I thought the article in the newsletter was excellent.
Thank you very much. Exactly what it was.
Very informative.
I wanted it to be fact. I mean, it is fact-based, but I also wanted it's my heart. So I hope some of that showed through too, that I genuinely care about our kids and who they sit in front of. And, you know, our circuit court judges are elected by us as well. So
Right.
I hope, and no disrespect to anyone before us, because I think our previous judges did a fine job as well. So.
Yeah, I just wanted, while we're here, also to just commend Amy, because you see the caseload, but particularly with the delinquency cases, what that often looks like is her meeting with them every week, these youth, to make sure that they're keeping up with their homework, that they're going to school, that they're doing everything that they need to do. So there's, in addition to her time that she's actually in court, she spends a lot of time with these kids trying to get them back to making good choices and back on the right path. So you're doing fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else for Amy? All right, we'll move on to Teresa, our safety committee. Hello.
Good morning. Teresa Aldrich, Gilliam County Court Administrative Assistant and Safety Officer. I'll just follow suit. Was there any questions about the item briefing?
Not at this point.
All right. I wanted to remind you, I didn't put in there that we meet the third Thursday of each month at 2 o'clock. So if you're out and about, please stop by and see us. The safety committee goals for the next year, no, get on the right page here. At the meetings, we discussed a security barrier around the sections of the courthouse. And at the north end of the courthouse, you can read by the sheriff's office, there's no barrier. So a few months ago, we had a high-speed pursuit that came through our community, and it kind of got the people in the sheriff's office maybe thinking a little more about this. Chris Fitzsimmons serves on the safety committee, and she brought this to our attention that, you know, if someone was disgruntled, they could drive through windows in the corner of the sheriff's office. And so we thought about some ideas of a retaining wall or landscape rocks or something there that maybe could prevent that, or try and prevent that from happening. I did speak with Nathan about budget concerns, because that might be, we will need some money, and he said that would be something that would come out of the maintenance budget. And so I've talked with Bill and see if we could maybe increase one of his line items, just in case the court wants to go through with this. So, any questions on that one?
No, I would also just say that we also have a pretty sizable capital fund that we did like the roof from. So we have some money that's sitting in a fund for building upgrades too, if maintenance didn't cover it.
Oh,
So
and wouldn't that sort of fall more into a capital project than it would
yeah, we
a
could,
maintenance?
well, we can
It's
look
an
at the
improvement.
numbers during the budget committee and see.
Capital improvement as opposed to just a maintenance item.
Okay.
At one time, court security funds said they would pay for that. And we have court security funds that we have really nothing to spend it on. But the whole west and north end of the building is, I guess, this way.
vulnerable. And even if it wasn't malicious, I could even see a scenario where someone just absentmindedly puts it
Happened
in
to
drive
drive in and
instead of
happened in
reverse.
Columbia Basin, so
Yeah.
it does happen.
Yeah. So it sounds like, though, this is something when we meet on the budget committee side that we need to flag as making sure that there's a plot somewhere where we're planning on taking this.
Again, at one of the safety meetings, our librarian, Mary Reeser, who also serves on the safety committee, brought up this concern. There's an area behind the library that they've had some issues with in the past, with some loitering and such. And we were hoping that we could get some additional lighting back there to eliminate that problem. And she also parks back there, so it's a safety concern when it's raining or snowy, that to make sure she has her footing, and our visitors to the library as well. So, and we are, Marla, and she is so great with grant writing. She serves on the safety committee as well. She is going to help me search for some grants that we could possibly get through CIS or OSHA for the funds needed for this additional lighting at the library.
Great.
And any questions on the library? Okay. The last one is county vehicle emergency bags. We've gotten some new vehicles lately, and the emergency bags are missing. And so we are putting together new emergency bags with jumper cables, blankets, flares, things we need. Again, the transportation department has generally donated supplies for the bags, and the safety committee will fill all the bags and make sure they get in every vehicle.
Great.
Fantastic.
Sounds like you guys have gotten a lot accomplished in a short amount of time.
We have. We just were formed again in September, and I wanted to thank everybody for willing to serve and give ideas and feedback to us so we can get going in the right direction.
It sounds like a very energetic group, but
It's good. It's a fun group. Marla bought me a hard hat the other day.
We're gonna bling it
She's
up.
gonna bling it up for me so I can wear it to the meetings.
Questions for Teresa?
The best, too.
I think I sent mine to you in that last email. I struggled getting on, but I think you got me squared away. Now I'm signed up, but I can check out the video, but.
We've also, I want to add, just for the people at home maybe that haven't had a chance to read the meetings, that we started the wellness walk every day, just to have people get out and focus their eyes away from their computer screen and stretch their legs. And then we've also implemented through CIS Learning Center, a safety video recommendation every month. And so we had a lot of participation in both of those since they just started at the beginning of the year. So it's been pretty fun.
I was thinking at my job, I would just get up at that time too and go.
Yeah, there you go.
Just do it
There
with,
you go.
with all of us. And again, I just have to say, like, our staff is doing incredible stuff, but Teresa's really, I think, re-energized and created more of a safety focus in the building. People are much more aware of it if something comes up. And I frequently, usually, if somebody noticed a safety issue, it usually came to me first. And so it's great to be able to say, hey, take that to Teresa, and Teresa, no matter what she's doing, if it's a current thing, will like hop up in the middle to make sure that people are making smart choices and that they're not putting themselves in dangerous situations, things like that. But I think also, I mean, the number of people that she had take like that first driving class and things like that, I think she's energized people, and people are bought into the idea that we need to work together to make it a safer workplace. So.
And I just want to say too that Daryl from the maintenance department has been a huge help with me, because he's involved with everything pretty much I do, all the building inspections, everything we do as a team. So he's been instrumental.
Great job.
Yeah, they're doing fantastic. All three of them, fantastic.
Yeah.
could I get a copy of the
PowerPoint? Yeah,
Because I
absolutely.
didn't have a packet, so.
Sure, it wasn't in packets, so we could surprise you today. I'll
That's
get
not
it.
it.
So, those are the staff reports we have for court today. So, are there any additional content questions for the panel?
Just, yeah, very good, very, very informative, well put together.
I like the panel approach.
Yes.
So,
Safety in numbers.
Yes, I feel pretty safe, right? We've got a safety officer, so we feel safe. So, talking about the process now. So, you've got everything in your packet, and then you have this panel approach to a presentation of staff reports, and obviously the content. How does this feel to you? Can you give us any feedback on whether it works well for you, if you want to see anything different when we do the March ones, so we can fine tune and adjust our approach to suit what your informational needs are?
I thought it worked well.
Yeah, I thought it was great. There was plenty of information, and the presentations were, yeah.
I like the structure of the more forward-looking, and, you know, because I think
Where we're
that's
going.
important for context, you know, for when Marla comes and asks for a paid driver, you know, that's sort of
We know
been
why.
set up, and that the public understands how that's connected. So I think that's great, and then to still have some of that background review in the written materials. So just as a reminder to the public who's watching, all of those materials are online. So if you want to see sort of what these departments have been doing, that's all available on the website. So I think that I thought it was great.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for your time.
Fantastic job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for being the guinea pigs. So let Teresa get reset.
Okay.
Related to that, there is for sort of the last item of that is the reporting schedule, and I put sort of an updated one. So I just wanted to run through and see if this sounds good. Both Waste Management and PCDC actually have requirements that they come see us quarterly. For Waste Management, it's in the conditional use permit. For PCDC, it's in the Memorandum of Understanding. So my PCDC hasn't been doing that, mostly because until I read the Memorandum of Understanding, I didn't know that that was a previous requirement.
Okay.
So I think we'll start getting them on the same sort of rotation that Waste Management is on
good.
quarterly. And then, as Lisa already mentioned, I think we're anticipating for the staff reports that that's a twice a year. So springtime, sort of looking into potential budget requests and things like that that are coming up at the beginning of the year. And then sort of a fall update on how things are going and, you know, any adjustments that are being made, things like that. For the road and weed departments, what I'm proposing is that we use the road tour as Dewey's update, so that he's not doing a formal one in front of the court. We can actually see what they're working on or what they're hoping to work on next. And then I have not talked to the weed master about this, but my idea would be to do a similar thing with the weed stuff,
Yeah,
that he
that'd be
could
great.
find something and show us, you know, whether it's the biological controls and how that works, how they, you know, place them, all that kind of stuff, that he could pick up some things. And then I wanted to throw out the idea of just doing an annual report from some of the other people that we fund that we may not hear as often. So maybe having an annual report from the library board, maybe the fair board, and then all of our organizations that have IGAs, so Fire Services, Community Counseling Solutions, OSU, SWCD, all of those folks, just getting them sort of once a year. And I'm thinking probably springtime would be a natural fit, so that if they're coming and saying, hey, actually we might need a little bit more money in the budget, things like that, that would be a good sort of time for them to mentally know that they are coming to see us. And, you know, like, especially like the library board, because we really don't interact with them too much about what they're up to, and so that might be a good springtime, and I'm assuming fair board would probably be on board with that. too.
Well, guess what? We have a fair board meeting tonight, so I will ask him.
Run it by them. We're just thinking maybe once a year on,
Yeah.
here's what we've got going. You know, if there's building needs or things that you need to flag for us, that would be a time to raise it, basically.
Yeah.
And if nothing new's going on, then nothing new's going on. So,
Yeah.
does this seem like a workable?
Yeah, I like it.
I
Okay.
think it's a good schedule.
Fantastic, then we will just continue to schedule
Okay.
with Teresa and Lisa and have staff prepped same way that they did today.
Good, good.
Fantastic.
Yeah, very informative.
Okay, so we'll move on to 6.3, which is discuss possible IGAs with a common food pantry and Arlington Help. So this is coming out of recommendations that partly recommendations that the grant review committee last year made to us, which there was a couple of entities that went through the competitive grant process last year that the grant review committee sort of flagged for us as, hey, these guys really are doing work that is probably more aligned with what the county does, so sort of our core functions, and it might be cleaner to put some of those entities in as IGAs into our budget. So for as an example, already working on the IGA with the City of Arlington for library services. That one should be coming back to us here in a couple of weeks. During the last meeting, we talked about the one with SWCD. So the two other ones that I'm recommending that we look at doing probably memorandum of understanding, because they're not governmental entities, is the food pantry and help. And so my justification for it really is, if you look historically, I think, based on Teddy's role in family services, and then Sabrina's role in senior services, I think we historically have said that sort of caring for the neediest in the community is a county function, that we want to support that through our staff. Teddy obviously helps coordinate for the Condon Food Pantry, so there's already sort of that natural connection that's occurring. Sabrina contracts with CAPCO, which is also a big funder or provider for our food pantries for the senior meal sites. So there's just some synergy already between existing departments and the work that they're doing and the partners that they have. So my recommendation, and what I'm asking for sort of guidance from you on, is, are those two entities that we would like to go ahead and sort of get that in the queue for our legal counsel to start developing agreements with?
Yeah, definitely. Our grant structure is such that we're asking people to come up with that matching funds. And that's something really difficult for Arlington Health and the food pantry. It just isn't out there. And so we need to be funding and assisting them in every way we can to help our community.
Yeah.
Well, it's out of that grant.
And it's gonna be nice on their end too, to have
Yes,
that
well, to
stability,
know
every year.
what your budget is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so hard to work when you don't know how much money you're gonna have to
Less
work
paperwork.
with.
And
huge!
I think, to be clear too, because we've got a lot of other organizations who will also want to be in there, and so I think we need to be clear when we're adding them that the reason that we're adding you guys is because you're doing services that are already things that the county has identified as county services.
Right.
We are already providing family services. We're already trying to help coordinate resources for these purposes, and so I just want to put that on the record, because I know I'm going to have a line of people in my office saying, I want an IGA too. And so, we need to be clear that, SWCD, we did because they're implementing something on our behalf.
Right.
Arlington's
Working for us.
Arlington is getting an IGA because we provide library services, and so their library services are in connection with ours. And so those are the justifications for why some people are getting IGAs and some people are not. It's not for the folks in the audience, it's for the people who are watching at home thinking,
Good clarification.
I want an IGA too. So the other piece that I wanted to get from you is, obviously we're in the middle of the grant cycle. And originally we had talked about, and I had told the Arlington Library and SWCD to go ahead and keep moving forward with their grants because we weren't sure if those would get done in time. I feel confident that we can get those wrapped up in time for the July 1 timeframe. So I'm wondering what you guys would feel about me just going back to those entities and saying, that will get wrapped up and they don't need to submit grant applications to us.
Which frees up grant money for other.
It does free up grant money. It also means that administratively, internally,
Right,
there are
they're having
fewer
to struggle.
things that are coming in that Kelly's helping people with
Right.
over something that in the end, we're gonna fund through a different
Yeah.
mechanism.
Yes.
So, you guys are both here, so you've been put on notice that you don't need to submit grants for those two. And we'll, instead just work directly with you and legal counsel to get, legal agreements in place about funding structure. And then I'll call the city, the library and SWCD and let them know as well that we'll focus on getting the agreement done rather than them submitting the
Yeah.
grant.
It's an important change.
Sean will be thrilled.
Yes.
Yes, Teddy?
Would we then just come back for a yearly review with you guys?
Yeah.
And not do sustainability
Exactly.
reports to you?
So you would not need to
Because you
do,
are- Okay.
basically, the list that we just talked about doing the reports for the county, we just decided that for those that have IGA, it would be once a year. So probably springtime, we would ask you to come in. That's mostly if, for instance, the funding level, you see a need that's gonna increase. That would give us a heads up before the budget committee
Right.
that, hey, this IGA needs to be adjusted and we need to allocate more funds for this purpose.
And we'll need to work through that for this coming budget process too, and what your needs are.
Exactly. So that'll be part of the
Something you need to think
discussion
about
is
and get put together.
making sure how much county support you need for that purpose. So you'll want to think that through. And we'll get those going with our legal counsel. So.
Do you have any questions or
Questions about that?
suggestions or concerns?
No, gratitude. Very much.
Great, fantastic. Okay, that's all I had for the agenda, so let's move into court member reports. Leslie.
Okay. A little road department update. Dewey said they're finishing Rattlesnake and starting on.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Dewey said they're finishing at Rattlesnake and starting on the baseline project at the county line. I believe the next road committee meeting is next Wednesday, and I'm having a heck of a time getting that on my calendar. I have another dentist appointment. I think I'm almost done with my dentist though, so hopefully I can get one of those once in a while. But anyway, I checked with Terry this morning also, and she said next Wednesday they will be having a road committee meeting. But since I was talking to Dewey the other day and I told him that I would not be able to attend, he and I are going to go out and take a look at some of the projects they're working on down at the north end, and we're going to do that next Wednesday morning. So,
Where is their meeting and what time on Wednesday?
I'm guessing they're usually 4 o'clock in Condon,
In the open conference room downstairs.
if you're interested.
I was thinking I had something else.
I've got
Maybe
time on
that's
my
March.
calendar, but if you want to come, you can too.
Yeah, I was just thinking that maybe, one of us could go and represent our.
And Terry also, I talked to her this morning, and she told me she would put it in this, so I'm now getting notifications when meetings are.
Oh, that's what's an important piece of the
Yeah.
puzzle.
Maybe I can do a little
Get a little heads up on your
Yes.
calendar.
But I'm looking forward to, running around with him for a couple hours next week. And
Great.
seeing what's happening down there, the north end. I have a special executive committee meeting today, this afternoon, with North Central Public Health District at 3. I'm also gonna try to make the chamber mixer next Thursday.
I didn't know about
At
that.
5:30. Yes, they're having a chamber mixer.
Here in Condon. Yeah.
Next Thursday, 5:30, that would be the 13th.
Looks like it would be a fabulous time. 5:30. And then, is anyone going, thanks for the email, is anyone planning on going or thinking about this reimagining the Rural West workshop?
Yes.
And that's in the Dalles, right?
Yes, I'm going.
Are you going?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I just was looking at it and thinking that looks very interesting. But I don't know yet if I can, and I'll see if I can work it out.
It's a 2-day thing. I don't know if you noticed, but so you could do split.
Half a day, half a day, looks like half a day Thursday and then morning
Half a day
on
Friday.
Friday. I saw that. Okay, I have just a quick little irrigation project update. I hear from Kip Krebs from time to time as to, what's going on
Mhm.
with them. And I think I mentioned to you both at a previous meeting, I think I did, that when I went to the ALC conference, I did speak with Nate Stice, and he put me in touch with Brett Golden, who is I can't remember what his title is, but he is with the Farmers Conservation Alliance, and he would be the contact that they would need, this group of landowners would need if they are interested in looking into the formation of an irrigation district. And so I kind of put them together. I
Got it.
basically told Brett, you're gonna get a call from this landowner, and I told Kip, here's his number. So, but in the last time I did speak with Kip, he said that they are looking at all options to create a project to benefit the most people, and it's just ongoing. And he said it's kind of slow work because right now they're lambing, pretty busy. And he also told me that there is grant money available for underground hydraulic mapping. So they're looking into all kinds of different ideas, checking out all their options. He also wanted me to make sure and tell the court that the feasibility study that the county spent money on was definitely not a waste of money. He says he's been going to meetings. He went to one recently with NRCS, which is the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and he said they were just very impressed that he walked in with feasibility plan. And so because all the things they discussed, he was like, well, I have it right here. I have that information.
Good.
So
Money well spent.
he said it's already proving to be an important tool in the discussions that they're having. So I just thought it was interesting. He keeps in touch with me a little bit, tells me what's going on. And I think that was about it. I didn't have a lot of meetings, but I have some things coming up, and that's what I got for this
Fantastic.
time.
Sherry.
Okay, well, I have been to a regular NORCOR meeting. We had representatives at the Oregon legislature this week. Molly Rogers and Kathy Schwartz made a presentation to the legislature regarding House Bill 4121. And that is, if the legislature assembly for any biennium appropriates to the Department of Corrections for distribution to the Northern Oregon Regional Correctional Facility at least $1,640,000, the Northern Oregon Regional Correctional Facility may not renew or renegotiate a contract or negotiate a new contract with United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement during the biennium. So that bill is out there. If people have any questions, please go to the NORCOR website. There's more information and some of the things that are happening. Capital is another issue for NORCOR, and we're working with our legislators to try to get some money from the state of Oregon to help offset some of those capital costs. I attended Tri-County and the Frontier Telenet meetings, and Tri-County, we're still in limbo with building codes, so that's still something we're kind of waiting for Wasco County to, make a decision sometime, but we're in limbo. I went to the Port of Arlington meeting last night for a very brief amount of time. I have asked them yesterday if they would consider having their executive sessions rather than right in the middle of their meeting to either happen before or after, and they said it was because their attorney was he was only able to be there for an hour, but we'll visit that again at the next court meeting and see what the agenda looks like, because it really alienates the public. There's no place to go from their office. It's cold outside, and then they do have a meal brought in. that kind of alienates the public as well. And something else I was gonna ask them about was, if they have too many visitors, if everyone had shown up yesterday, they had someone that was supposed to report that wasn't there, there's not enough room for everyone in the building. And I was gonna ask them if they consider maybe changing their venue to accommodate more public interest, so. The newsletter was excellent. I thought it was great. I just have one request, and that would be that maybe Leslie and I would get a chance to look at it before it goes out to the public, in case we have questions, or just so we've got a heads up, because I don't always get my newspaper before other people do, and
Yeah.
so then they're asking me questions and I haven't seen it yet.
Perfect.
So
We can do
just-
that.
Just a little heads up on what's
Okay.
going out.
And I apologize because I was of the understanding you had seen it, so
Mhm.
obviously
I have.
And I have-
communication.
And I'm gonna
is,
add to that when you're done with your.
Okay, I'm done, go ahead, Ann.
Oh, are you done? Yes, I thought the newsletter, I already said it was excellent. It was very positive. I thought it was very informative. It was just nicely done. But there were two things that I would have liked to have seen on it. And one was that, that little piece on the road department and the road committee, it says, if you have questions or concerns, please contact any one of the members of the road committee or the road master. And I kind of just wish that it would have said, or the road commissioner as well.
Okay.
Because I want people to feel like they can please come talk to me if they're concerned about what's going on. And the other thing was the article on the juvenile department. I would have liked to have seen something. I mean, I know she started off by saying that we were trying this year, but as I continued to read it, put myself as in the mindset of a member of the public that may not know as much about this as I do, I kind of wish it would have said something towards the end and said, there still has not been any permanent decision made on this. Because I just read it and I was afraid that people would get excited about something that has not changed.
Yeah.
Just on it. So those were my 2 comments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good feedback. We'll work that into our, we're planning on doing it, I hope, quarterly.
Yeah,
And so,
that would be great.
so the next one, we'll just build in time for review into that schedule.
That would be much appreciated.
Fantastic. Anything else?
I don't have anything
I
else.
don't either.
Okay, I've got a couple of things. One, I just wanted to remind you guys that we had tentatively committed to doing the spring road tour in
Oh, right.
March. So I just wanted to flag that and make sure it's still on your calendar. We had talked about March 11th, and this would be at the north end of the county.
Okay.
So I had seen the road committee last month, and we talked about it, and they still want to do it. So this is
Okay.
just an FYI.
Thank you, because I would make a dentist appointment with them.
Don't make a dentist, don't make a dentist appointment
make it.
on the 11th.
Okay.
So there's that one. I went and saw Kevin Hunking at Arlington Schools, and he gave me a little tour of the facility and talked about some of the ADA upgrades that they need to make and things like that. And I actually thought it was really useful to walk through the building and have him sort of share that. Given that we have some reporting requirements for the schools, but both of their projects are not going to be completed by June 30th. What would you guys think about scheduling, and I'm thinking maybe when we're in Arlington for our next meeting, for the next meeting that we're in Arlington, if we did a little work session and did a walkthrough with Kevin of the Arlington schools, and then he could show us basically what county funds have bought previously, but also I think it's really helpful, especially on the ADA stuff, for him to sort of show you in the building what they're actually looking for. I found it helpful.
That would be great.
Great. So I will have Teresa coordinate with Kevin and probably do a work session that last meeting in March is what we're talking
the 18th,
about.
is that when we meet in Arlington?
I think so. Double check. Yeah, the 18th of March. So we do, and then I'll also talk to Michelle Gear about scheduling one in Condon at some point, and she can walk us through and probably give an update too. I know that they'd probably like to give an update on where they are with the new
Right.
building and sort of how they think that process will play out. So I'll see about getting both schools. And then the idea would be we would treat that as their report, their initial report. They'll do a final one
good.
once they spend the money, but this is sort of the mid-project report, if that
Great.
works for you.
Great, yes.
I also have been doing a lot of meetings with our organizations who applied for operational grants last year to try to help them think through sustainability and start brainstorming things that they need to look up and that the county can help them with if there's certain resources or things we need to advocate for. For example, met with the child care, and one of the big questions is how the new early ed money that's coming from the Student Success Act, how that's gonna be distributed. And the early education hubs are the ones that are doing that. And so, for instance, we had a discussion about being in that room more often and advocating that those go direct into service providers rather than getting sort of caught up in administrative stuff at the hub. So those kinds of things. During that meeting though, what the child care had asked is they would also like you guys to take a tour of the facility and kind of talk about some of the cool things that they're doing there. And so I'm wondering about scheduling. Again, I'm thinking for most of these, we would just take like the hour before our meeting, do a work session, obviously has to be publicly noticed, then doing that tour and then coming back and doing our regular meeting, so.
Sounds great.
Okay, so I'll get all of those on the calendar and have Teresa kind of coordinate, make sure that those dates that we can plug in work.
Okay.
Sound good?
Great, yes.
Okay, I also went to the Port of Arlington meeting. Lisa came with us and my mom, and so we ended up sitting in the car during the executive session waiting for it. But the one takeaway, we did talk about, for very briefly, just gave them an overview of the Willow Creek, our proposal to sort of resolve this disagreement over Willow Creek. And when they came out of executive session, their action was to direct Ruben basically to draft a response to us. I don't know what that response is, no idea. They didn't give us any hints during the meeting, but it does appear that at least they discussed it last night and that we should be getting some word from them on whether they want to pursue
Do I
a
have a copy of
resolution
the
or
email
not.
that you sent them? Is that something I just have,
I can get that to you.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
I don't think I have a copy.
I don't know if I put you guys on it or not. I'm guessing I did not, so we'll get you a copy of
Okay,
that.
would be great.
Other than that, most of, like I said, most of the meetings I'm taking right now are with entities that are looking for operational support this year. And so talking through, sort of trying to make sustainability not so scary for them. So far those meetings have gone well. The feedback that I've heard even through the grapevine is that people felt better after their conversations, that they feel like this is a doable thing. So this is just sort of the plug for people who are watching on YouTube, that if you are one of those organizations that is looking at applying for an operational support grant, I will try to reach out to you, but if I don't get to you, reach out to me first. I'm happy to spend time. Several of these meetings have been 2 or 3 hours long, just sort of digging into their budgets and talking about their funding sources and brainstorming ways that they could improve their financial stability. So please reach out to us at the courthouse. We're here to help, and Kelly's here to help with budgets and all that kind of stuff. All of the grant applications are online now, and I'm planning on sending out a letter to all of last year's applicants, whether they were successful or not, just sort of reminding them of the reporting requirements in their current grants, and also letting them know that the new grant applications are online, and that they can ask for help from me or Kelly or anybody. So I think that's all I've got.
Did you go to the housing meeting, the recent housing meeting?
On Friday, yes. So the city of Condon held their retreat that they do. And prior to that, we had a meeting with Nate Stice from Regional Solutions, and Lisa was there, and me and Catherine, and Jan Stinchfield came in partway through. talking about a possible redevelopment of the school district's property, the grade school property that's going to become vacant, obviously, when the new school comes in. So right now we're talking about a possible partnership, potentially even with PCDC, on developing first the baseball field that is behind, because it's empty ground. It's not regulation, so a high school team could not play on there, and then obviously we have the Little League fields to handle that. So it can't serve its original intended purpose, and so we've started discussions with the school district about maybe them conveying that to whether it's PCDC or the city, so that it could be developed into housing. And then the back lot of the grade school then would be sort of the phase 2, because it's empty ground and there's utilities running next to it, so it would be easy to develop that. And then the third phase would be what to do with the grade school. And so the city has some ideas. I think they want to kick around whether you could actually, rather than demolish it, maybe look at potentially turning it into condos or something else. And if that's not viable, then demolishing it and turning it into sort of phase 3 of a housing project.
Yeah, I just heard a little bit about it, and I thought, wow, I'm just impressed that Con is,
Yeah, the city council made that one of
looking outside the box. I mean,
Yeah, right.
They made it one of their priorities, and so the funding source we're looking after is there was a state pilot project for workforce housing that they have now turned into a permanent housing fund. And the idea is to entice employers to the table. And so what we're kicking around, potentially the school district providing the ground may be enough to qualify for that grant, because they are a potential employer and they're basically giving something of value into it. But we may also look at other employers that are in the region, whether it's waste management, people who have a hard time, their employees have a hard time finding housing, and that's an impediment to them hiring. Nate Stice had actually brought up the idea of a master lease, and basically what it is an employer would guarantee a certain number of units that they would pay rent on for a certain period of time. And so we'll take waste management as an example, though I don't know if they would be interested in this. Waste management would sign potentially a master lease for, say, 10 units for 5 years. And they would agree to pay a certain, so even if the apartment was empty, they would still be on the hook for paying that amount. If they didn't need the 10 units and they could be rented out to somebody else, then that would reduce waste management's cost basically to the owner of the property. And so Nate brought this up as a tool because that guarantee income is a way to get the banks willing to lend on projects and unlock capital that may not otherwise be available. So that's sort of the mechanism we're using to explore, and to also use that master lease as basically counting as the employer's contribution, which would potentially unlock state dollars to help supplement building costs for contractors to make it all be a little bit more financially viable. So that's what we're talking about, all those different pieces coming together. But it's not a county project per se. It originally was something I threw out at the meeting, and Catherine Briner took it and thought the city might want to do that. And then during the retreat, the city council confirmed that that was something they wanted to pursue. So it would be a city project, but it may be something that at some point they come to us and look for a matching grant or something to try to unlock the state dollars. And then my role basically is to try to get resources and parties in the same room to help the city. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Very cool.
Positive steps forward.
Yeah.
Instead of just talking, doing something.
Exactly. So that, I think, is it for me. Anything else? Okay. Next regular meeting is February 19th. I am anticipating that will be a more heavy agenda, because right now we've got a lot of pending stuff at council. So
Oh,
I'm thinking we're
yes.
gonna start seeing drafts shoot out in the next week or so. So I'm hoping we'll have a little bit more robust agenda than we did today. And, yeah, I think that's the only announcement we had. So, nothing else, I'll adjourn the meeting. It's 11:20.
Okay.